Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of my video series on automating the remote installation of NixOS and Nix-config. In the previous videos, we talked about the tools used as well as the overall problem set that we're trying to solve. To automate the process, several modifications were made to the Nix-config, and at a high level, there were significant additions to the structural anatomy. So let's look at two new directories that were added to Nix-config. We've added a custom config library to nixconfig/lib and a set of custom variables to nixconfig/vars. Adding these isn't entirely necessary to accomplish remote bootstrapping, but they were implemented during the project and show up in a lot of the examples throughout this, so it's worth going over what they do. The contents of both lib and vars are made available in our flake.nix outputs using configVars and configLib. configVars gives us convenient access to a set of global style configuration variables, or attributes more accurately, such as configVars.username for the primary user and configVars.isMinimal, which will be described in much more detail later on. There are several other attributes listed here, but I've only started using a few of them at this point. configLib gives us the scanPaths and relative-to-root functions for now, both of which can help clean up imports. Credit for both of these functions goes to Ryan Yin. scanPaths will build a map of the paths to all .nix files in the current directory and its children, excluding those called default.nix. It effectively lets us shrink some of our import blocks. As you can see, when using the function, we no longer need to individually name each of the modules that we want imported. Obviously, this only works if all of the .nix files in the current and child directories are meant to be imported, but since everything in our core directories is always used, it's the perfect candidate. I'm currently using this only for my common core directories. It's important to note that using scanpaths to auto-import files does have drawbacks. The files being imported aren't being explicitly stated, so in the future we may run into trouble debugging errors. This is largely a matter of personal preference, so if you choose to follow suit, just be aware of the risks. Being explicit wherever possible will arguably be more forgiving in the future. Relative to root allows us to provide file paths based on the root of the Nix config, instead of having to use // for static navigation. This typically occurs for imports, and depending on the scenario, you may be traversing back several directories. The beauty of using relative to root is that you can move files to different directories if need be, and the pathing will still work. So in this example, we have a case where we're importing a single file using // and we can eliminate the use of that to traverse directories in favor of portability relative to root. Now, later on in this file, we also have multiple imports that can be modified using the map function to apply configLib.relativeToRoot to all of the strings in the list that follows it. This way we don't have to write out the configLib.relativeToRoot for every imported file like we did for the single file. And as you can see here, aside from removing the // and adding in the path relative to root, we just need to wrap each list item in quotes so it's correctly handled by map. For our minimal flake, we'll create a new directory within our Nix config. The directory contains the minimal flake file itself and a minimal configuration file. This will let us cherry pick the minimum required configuration details to install NixOS, generate AGE keys for the host, update the Nix secrets repo, and then, if all goes well, load and build the full Nix config. At any point along the way, we can interrupt the process to perform tests and experimentation. This new directory also gives us a place to house our ISO configs. Generating ISO images in our Nix config requires defining them as a flake output. So rather than adding them to our main flake.nix, we can add our ISO output exclusively to the nixos-installer flake file instead. And in doing so, we can segregate all of our install-only items from the rest of the Nix config. So let's have a look at the minimal flake.nix file. As you can see, we only need to input Nix packages and disko, so we're already inputting a lot less than in the full Nix config, which currently has 8 inputs. Moving to the output section, we've got a large let statement with a few notable distinctions from the main flake. The first is that we're defining a minimal config vars set using the lib.recursiveUpdate function. Now, this function takes in our config vars, but updates the value of isMinimal to true. This is effectively how we'll be differentiating between the minimal flake and the full flake when importing modules that are used by both of them. We'll cover how the isMinimal attribute is used in the relevant modules later on in the video. The second notable distinction is the new config function, which establishes a pattern of attributes that are used to quickly define the specs for each host in NixOS configurations at the bottom of the in statement that follows. By dynamically handling the name, disk location, with swap boolean, and swap size, some duplicate entry is reduced. We'll look into how these attributes are actually used later on when we talk about the disko spec. Another important distinction is that rather than each host using its own configuration module, as they do in the main flake, all of the hosts here use a nixos installer minimal configuration. Also note that nixos configurations provides the entry point to our ISO, which we'll talk about shortly. Now let's look at the minimal configuration. Most of this file declares the basic nixos options that are used in all of the hosts, with some minor tweaks that are really only acceptable in a minimal environment that won't be around for long. The most notable tweaks are a change to the file system boot options. This will remove some warnings about permission and security that are acceptable in this state. And permit root login is set to yes for OpenSSH service, which under normal circumstances is set to no, but setting it to yes for now will allow for some convenient automation prior to building the full Nix config. We'll also set up some security.pam options that will make the remote process more convenient by forwarding any SSH auth requests from the target host. Some of these options do appear in various hosts core or hosts optional modules, but because the vast majority of what's in those modules are things that we don't want in the minimal environment, we're repeating some of the declarations here. The one exception to this is when we set up a user for the minimal environment using our primary users module, in my case TA, which we import at the top of the file. There are enough options configured in the users modules that we want to import it whole. However, some of what gets used will be limited by that is minimal attribute that I mentioned being set to true. The details of which options are used or not used because of this we'll cover shortly. The ISO section of our Minimal Flakes NixOS configuration set references three modules. The Minimal Installation CD module, which defines a small non-graphical NixOS installation. The Channel module, which provides an initial copy of the NixOS channel, so we don't need to run a Nix channel update. And our own default ISO module, which is where we declare the custom attributes that we want. Let's look at that file now. As you can see, the ISO customization is relatively simple. It sets us up with flakes, QEMU guest support, and some SSH basics, among other things. The QEMU guest support just happens to be the virtual machine that I'm using. You could set that up for VirtualBox or something else, or not bother at all. We're also going to import our primary user module so that we get our preferred shell and some of the required tooling. As with elsewhere in the minimal flake, use of our user module will be limited by that is minimal attribute being set to true. To generate our custom ISO image, we can run the following command from the root of our Nix config. The results will be written to nixconfig/result/ISO. It's worth knowing that if you're booted into the image file already using libvirtd for a virtual machine, and you build a new version of the image file and then reboot your VM, the original image will be used instead of the new one. To get around this, you must first delete the image file from your result/ISO directory and then build the new image. So to make that more convenient and also simplify the command, we can run the just ISO recipe from our just file, which will delete the entire result directory and build the ISO using one quick command. With the ISO image created, it can be flashed to a USB stick to insert into the target host, or if you're building a VM, you can simply point the machine's optical drive directly to the file. When we do need the ISO flashed to a USB device, we could run the just ISO install recipe and specify the device path to the USB device. This recipe will first run just ISO and then perform the following dd command to write the image to the specified device. With the custom ISO generated, we can set it aside for now and work on the rest of the steps. It is possible to create images in many different formats other than ISO using an excellent Nix community tool called nixos-generators. You can, for example, generate a QCOW image, which is the QEMU virtual storage file format, and that image can be run directly as a virtual machine with an appropriate VM manager. I chose to focus only on ISO for the time being because it serves all of my needs. Let's take a look at the changes to my primary users module. We've got a new let statement at the top, and we define full user config using lib.optionaladders, which takes in two inputs. If the first input is true, then the function will return the second input, which is an attribute set. In our case, the conditional input is not is minimal. The result being that when isMinimal is false, optional adders will return the provided set of attributes to full user config. However, if isMinimal is true, optional adders will return an empty set. All of the attributes we provide in the full user config set should be options we only want when our full user configuration is required. And these include sops hashedPasswordFile, which, although it's already provided earlier on in the module, it will only have a meaningful value if sops is working, which will only be the case if the full config is being built. We'll also only use Home Manager in a full config, and this will cut down immensely on the installation size because the majority of programs used in our full config are declared through the Home Manager. With that out of the way, we come to the in statement where we define config using lib.recursiveUpdate. As we know from using this function in the minimal flake, it will merge two attribute set inputs. In this case, we input our full user config from the let statement, and for the second input, we declare our set of attributes that we want regardless of what value isMinimal is set to. There are three things particularly noteworthy regarding this section of the config because they cause some hurdles and confusion. First, recursive update is a recursive variant of the attribute update operator //. The recursion in recursive update will stop when one of the attribute values is not an attribute set, in which case the right-hand side value takes precedence over the left-hand side value. In an early iteration of this file, we mistakenly used // in error to merge the full user config with the second set. And what happened was that regardless of whether isMinimal was set to true or not, the users.users.ta options from the second attribute set were always used. And the reason for this is quite subtle. Consider the following examples. Both foo and bar have an attribute with the same name, users.users.ta. In example 1, recursive update prefers the second argument when a duplicate attribute name is encountered, but only when recursion on an attribute value stops. And this occurs when an attribute value is not a set. In other words, the function continues even though both arguments have users.users.ta.shell. As expected, packages equals packages.homemanager from the first argument is merged with shell equals packages.zsh from the second argument, having taken precedence over shell equals package.bash from the first. On the contrary, when // encounters the same attribute name in both sets, it takes the value of the second set. In other words, it sees that both arguments have an attribute name users.users.ta and takes only the value of the second argument. This took a little bit of digging to figure out given this scenario, so I hope calling it out will help someone else in the future. And to be clear, the documentation on this is accurate, but we'd forgotten the details and neglected to confirm our assumptions, which serves as a good reminder to regularly revisit basic features that you may not use frequently. The second thing of note in this section added significant confusion when trying to solve the issue that we just talked about, because the official documentation states that password overrides hashedPasswordFile. This not only doesn't make sense, but it's also not how the underlying code in Nix packages actually works. Fidgeting Bits looked into this extensively and filed PR 310484 to correct the issue. As of this recording, I believe that the PR is still open, so if you want more details about what the issue actually is, go check it out. The final thing I'll mention on that is about using plain text passwords. It's possible due to testing and experimentation needs that you'll want to have a host on your network running in the ISO or the minimal config without immediately rebuilding the full config. If that's the case, you likely don't want to use the plain text password option. Instead, you can simply replace password with hashedPassword and provided a value of a hash password that is still something convenient to use and remember given the environment, but it's different than your actual user and root password. To generate a hash for your password, you can do this in the CLI using makepassword-s and follow the prompts. Our disko specifications are stored in hosts' common disks to keep them organized and separate from unrelated modules. For the time being, there is only a single file here that all of our hosts will be using. In my case, each host is assumed to have a single disk that will consist of an obligatory ESP partition for boot and a btrfs partition split into subvolumes for root, persist, thinking ahead to impermanence, nix, and swap, optionally. The spec is quite simple, but we'll want to make it handle some of the use cases dynamically. Disko locates devices to partition and format through the following attribute, which is where you specify the path to the device. For example, this could be /dev/SDA for your primary hard disk or /dev/VDA for your primary virtual machine disk. You can also provide paths to the devices using their other identification paths, such as by ID if you prefer. Since some of my hosts are virtual and others are not, we'll need a way to set this depending on the host. To start with, each host configuration module will import disko from the flake inputs along with our disk spec, and below that we'll also define some arguments for the host. This is an example of the relevant code from the module for my host Grief. Note that we're providing the disk path and with swap states specifically for this host. Now let's briefly review how the same arguments were set in our nixos installer flake, since it doesn't use the host's configuration module. As you can see, the same information is passed through to disko. Eventually, the same pattern will be used across all locations that set the arguments once I decide on which pattern to use, and at that point, we'll likely define the values for each host using configVars. Now that we know where those arguments are declared, let's look at the standard disk configuration to see where each of the arguments is used. Here we can see where the device path is being used. And moving further down to the last subvolume in the file, we can see that swap will only have values if with swap is true, in which case swap size will be used. By reading through the rest of the file, we can see how it's relatively easy to define that the disk will consist of the two partitions, 512 megabytes for boot and the remainder for root, and that second partition will consist of 3 to 4 subvolumes, root, persist, nix, and optionally swap. A final piece of information on the topic of disks is that each host will still require a hardware configuration file, as is normal for NixOS. When using disko, however, the file systems and swap devices attributes, which are normally declared in the hardware file, will be absent. This may not be of interest to most people because the hardware file is typically generated automatically, but it's worth knowing. So now we've looked at all of the modifications to the Nix config that are required. In the next video, we'll look at the automation script itself and talk through the order of operations and the necessary steps to make this all work. Thanks for watching, and remember, the way out is through.